Where am I? How did I get here?
Blinding neon lights pierced through the darkness, momentarily blinding him. He was lying on a cold steel table, restrained by leather straps. Panic surged through him. His eyes darted around the room, struggling to focus in the dimly lit space. Strange symbols flickered on the walls, indecipherable and alien. A low hum vibrated through the room, accompanied by the incessant dripping of water. A mechanical voice shattered the silence. Experiment initiated. Subject 045. Status active.
Experiment subject, what does it all mean?
Confusion tightened its grip on his mind. He strained against the restraints, his heart pounding against his ribs. The room seemed to pulse around him, the neon lights casting dancing shadows that only amplified his fear. He had to get out of there.
I have to get out of here.
With a desperate surge of adrenaline, he ripped free from the restraints. The metal table clanged against the floor as he scrambled to his feet, his legs unsteady beneath him. He scanned the room, searching for an escape. A single door, heavy and metallic, stood out against the far wall. He stumbled towards it, his hand shaking as he reached for the handle. It was cold and damp against his palm. With a grunt, he pulled the door open, stepping cautiously into the corridor beyond.
Come on, keep moving.
The corridor stretched out before him, seemingly endless, bathed in the cold glow of flickering LED lights embedded in the floor. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and something metallic, sending a shiver down his spine. The silence was deafening, broken only by the rhythmic pulse of the LED lights. He took a hesitant step forward, then another, his footsteps echoing eerily off the metallic walls. As he ventured deeper into the corridor, he became aware of a faint sound, like whispers carried on the wind. They seemed to emanate from the shadows that danced at the edge of his vision, growing louder with each step he took.
What is that?
He stopped, his breath catching in his throat. The shadows seemed to twist and writhe, taking on menacing shapes that sent shivers down his spine. Were they real, or just figments of his imagination? He pressed on, his heart pounding in his chest. He had to find a way out of this nightmare. Up ahead, he spotted a door set into the wall, different from the one he had exited. It was ornately carved with strange symbols, glowing faintly in the dim light. He couldn't decipher the language, but it filled him with a sense of unease.
This has to be the way out.
He reached out, his hand trembling slightly, and pushed the door open.
Come closer! Come closer!
The whispers echoed around him, growing louder and more insistent as he stepped through the door.
He gasped. The room beyond was vast, filled with a blinding light that made him wince. As his eyes adjusted, he realized the light was coming from dozens, maybe hundreds of floating holograms. They hung suspended in mid-air, each one depicting a different face contorted in a silent scream. The faces were grotesque, twisted into expressions of pure terror. Their eyes seemed to follow him as he moved, their silent screams echoing in his ears. The air was thick with a palpable sense of fear and despair. He stumbled back, his hand flying to his mouth to stifle a cry. This place was a nightmare. He had to get out.
They're coming, a voice whispered.
He whirled around, searching for the source of the sound. One of the holograms, a woman with long, flowing hair and eyes wide with terror, was flickering faintly.
Run! She screamed, her voice distorted and broken.
The lights began to flicker, plunging the room into darkness. One by one, the holograms winked out of existence, their screams fading into the shadows. Panic surged through him. He had to escape. He turned and ran, his footsteps echoing in the darkness. The corridor stretched out before him, seemingly endless. He could hear the sound of heavy footsteps pounding behind him, gaining ground. He pushed himself harder, his lungs burning, his legs screaming for respite. He had to escape. The corridor opened up into a large, circular chamber. A single spotlight shone down from the ceiling, illuminating a massive mirror that covered the far wall. He stumbled to a halt, his chest heaving. He glanced at his reflection and gasped. His eyes glowed with an eerie light. Metallic implants protruded from beneath his skin, pulsing with an unnatural energy. This wasn't him.
Welcome back, Subject 045, a voice boomed through the chamber.
The reflection in the mirror smiled, a chilling, predatory grin.
Distorted voice. To be continued.